For decades, the world has admired that unforgettable image. Princess Diana descending the steps of St. Paul's Cathedral, shrouded in ivory silk and mythology. That dress, majestic and cloud-like, seemed to crown her not just a bride, but a global icon. Yet behind that breathtaking vision lay a story few ever heard. And now, over 40 years later, the woman who helped bring that legendary gown to life has finally spoken. At 72, Elizabeth Emanuel, co-designer of Diana's wedding dress, has broken her silence. What she shares isn't just about fabric and lace. It's about secrecy, vulnerability, and the haunting weight of a legacy that never stopped growing. Diana Frances Spencer was born on July 1, 1961, into British aristocracy, raised at Park House on the Queen's Sandringham estate. Though her family had deep ties to the monarchy, her childhood was far from idyllic. Her parents' bitter divorce left wounds that never quite healed. By 1980, Diana was quietly working as a nursery assistant in London when her life changed forever. Her relationship with Prince Charles, a man 13 years her senior and under pressure to marry, quickly became tabloid gold. Diana had all the right credentials: noble blood, a clean image, youth, and beauty. In February 1981, they were engaged. That July, they married in a televised fairy tale watched by 750 million people. But behind the glamour, trouble was already brewing. Diana embraced her royal duties with heart. She connected with the public like no royal had before, touching AIDS patients, walking through minefields, shining light on homelessness and mental health. But behind palace walls, she was crumbling. Her marriage to Charles wasn't a love story. It was a selection process. She wasn't chosen for love, she was chosen to fit an image. At just 19, Diana stepped into the monarchy with no real preparation and no emotional safety net. From the start, she felt isolated. Her husband was distant, emotionally cold, and still deeply attached to Camilla Parker Bowles. The cracks widened quickly. Years later, journalist Sir Max Hastings recalled a chilling conversation with Diana. She told him she despised Charles, believed he was unfit to be king, and hoped William would take the crown instead. More disturbingly, she confessed fears that people within the establishment wanted her silenced, that she was being watched, and worse, targeted. These weren't delusions. They were the result of years spent under constant surveillance, by the media, by the palace, and by a system that demanded perfection but offered no protection. Diana hadn't married a man. She had married an institution, and it slowly drained her. What looked like a fairy tale was, in truth, a silent tragedy. A bright, empathetic woman caught in a cold, calculating machine, her voice stifled, her pain ignored, and her warnings too easily dismissed. She tried to follow the script, but in the end, she tore it up. And what happened next, how it all spiraled, how the world watched in horror as this luminous woman fell deeper into despair, was not just a royal tragedy. It was a human one. Let's step through the timeline of a love story that never truly was, and the slow, shattering fall that followed. Long before Diana ever entered the royal stage, Prince Charles had already surrendered his heart to Camilla Shand. They met in 1970 at a polo match, where sparks flew effortlessly. Their connection was immediate, grounded in a shared sense of humor and a deep appreciation for country life. But fate didn't favor young love. In 1972, Charles left for a tour of duty with the Royal Navy, and during his absence, Camilla became engaged to cavalry officer Andrew Parker Bowles. By 1973, she was married. The romance with Charles faded, but their bond did not. In fact, Charles remained so entwined in her life that he eventually became godfather to her child. Charles tried to move on. Over the years, he dated a succession of aristocratic women, each more suitable than the last. One of them was Lady Sarah Spencer. That relationship was short-lived, but it led to something far more significant: an introduction to her younger sister, Lady Diana. Diana was just 16 when Charles met her at a shooting party in 1977. He remembered her as cheerful and innocent, a breath of fresh air. It wasn't until 1980 that Charles began to view Diana as a serious contender for marriage. She had blossomed into a poised, graceful young woman who seemed to meet every royal requirement: noble background, unblemished past, and a willingness to conform. Their courtship was brief, awkwardly formal, and largely conducted over the phone. They met only 13 times in person before Charles proposed. Still, when the engagement was announced on February 24, 1981, the public responded with euphoric fascination. He was 32. She was 19. The age gap was noted but quickly dismissed. Suddenly, Diana was no longer a shy girl from a noble family. She was the future Princess of Wales. Her every move, outfit, and gesture became the subject of national obsession. In May, she was brought to Balmoral Castle to meet the royal family, where she passed the royal test but privately felt overwhelmed and alone. And then, on July 29, 1981, the world watched as Diana married Charles in a fairy-tale ceremony at St. Paul's Cathedral. Nearly 750 million people tuned in. London streets overflowed with nearly 600,000 well-wishers. It was regal perfection, or so it seemed. Behind Diana's luminous smile, however, was a woman on the brink of despair. In private recordings later shared with biographer Andrew Morton, she confessed she felt like a lamb to the slaughter on her wedding day. Her instincts warned her. Camilla wasn't gone. The honeymoon, a 2-week voyage aboard the royal yacht Britannia, only confirmed her fears. She discovered cufflinks bearing 2 interlocking C's, Camilla's gift to Charles. It was a small item, but it broke something in Diana. An argument erupted, and from that moment, the shadow of Camilla never left. Still, Diana pressed on. She played the part the world expected of her with grace. On June 21, 1982, she gave birth to Prince William at St. Mary's Hospital, rejecting palace tradition in favor of a more public, human setting. It was a subtle but powerful gesture, one of many that would come to define her. In 1983, Charles and Diana embarked on a royal tour of Australia. Charles was meant to be the star, but it was Diana who captivated the crowds. Her ability to connect, genuinely, effortlessly, with ordinary people was unmatched. She shook hands without gloves, knelt to children, looked people in the eye. She was warmth incarnate. The world couldn't get enough. Diana fever had officially begun. On September 15, 1984, Diana gave birth to Prince Harry. Outwardly, the family appeared picture-perfect. But inside, the marriage was crumbling. Diana battled bulimia and depression. She was lonely, isolated, emotionally starved. By 1986, Charles had rekindled his affair with Camilla, plunging Diana further into anguish. That same year, Diana found solace in her bodyguard, Barry Manicky, someone she later called her greatest love. His sudden death in a mysterious motorcycle crash devastated her and stoked feelings of paranoia. By 1989, she could no longer contain her emotions. At a party where Charles and Camilla were both present, Diana confronted her rival. "I know what's going on," she said quietly. Camilla tried to deflect, suggesting Diana had other admirers. Diana's answer was devastating in its simplicity: "I want my husband." But the confrontation changed nothing. In 1992, the infamous Camillagate scandal broke. An intimate phone call between Charles and Camilla leaked to the press, confirming the affair to a horrified public. That same year, the royal couple announced their separation. They continued performing royal duties together, but it was clear the marriage had collapsed. In 1994, Charles publicly admitted to infidelity in a televised interview, calling the marriage irretrievably broken. That night, Diana arrived at a Vanity Fair gala in a stunning black cocktail dress that screamed independence and defiance. The press dubbed it the revenge dress, and Diana wore it like armor. In 1995, Camilla divorced Andrew Parker Bowles. Later that year, Diana delivered a searing interview on BBC's Panorama. It was raw, revealing, unforgettable. She spoke of her eating disorder, her depression, and her feeling of abandonment. She confirmed the affair and uttered the now legendary line, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." Her candor shocked the establishment and captured the public's heart. The monarchy suffered a reputational blow. Charles became the villain, Diana, the people's princess. By August 1996, the divorce was finalized. Diana retained her title as Princess of Wales but was stripped of Her Royal Highness. She remained in Kensington Palace, raising her boys and stepping further into her role as a humanitarian icon. Even divorced, she remained the most beloved royal in the world. Then came the moment that shattered history. On August 31, 1997, Diana died in a car crash in a Paris tunnel, alongside her companion Dodi Fayed and their driver, Henri Paul. He had been drinking. The car was speeding. But it was the chasing paparazzi that many blamed. The world plunged into shock and grief. Mourners gathered outside Kensington Palace, burying the gates under a sea of flowers, candles, and handwritten messages. And the royal family stayed silent. As millions wept, the Queen remained at Balmoral with her grandsons, refusing to return to London. The press erupted. "Where is the Queen?" they demanded. "Where is her humanity?" Public anger rose to a boiling point. Under intense pressure, Queen Elizabeth finally addressed the nation. In a rare broadcast, she spoke not as a monarch, but as a grandmother. She paid tribute to Diana's exceptional and gifted nature and acknowledged the nation's pain. It was a watershed moment. The monarchy had been rattled, and it would never be the same again. Diana's legacy, of vulnerability, strength, compassion, endured long after the funeral car passed through the gates. The woman they called the people's princess had died. But in death, she became eternal. Years had passed, but the memory of Diana refused to fade. Her presence still lingered, soft as a whisper, powerful as a storm. When Charles finally married Camilla in a quiet civil ceremony in 2005, the union, though accepted by many, carried the scent of old wounds. It remained a silent echo of betrayal, a reminder of everything that came before. In 2021, on what would have been Diana's 60th birthday, Princes William and Harry stood united as they unveiled a statue of their mother at Kensington Palace. It wasn't just a tribute, it was a reckoning. Diana had been more than a royal. She had been a symbol of courage, compassion, and a woman who dared to carve her own identity within a system designed to silence her. Decades later, the past stirred again. Elizabeth Emanuel, the designer behind Diana's legendary wedding gown, stepped forward. Back in 1981, the ivory silk taffeta dress, with its 25-foot train and 10,000 pearls, became iconic overnight. But behind the fairy tale were secrets. Decoy swatches, hidden fittings, and even a backup gown made in case disaster struck. That spare dress, simple and trainless, was unknown even to Diana. In 2024, Elizabeth recreated it for the virtual Princess Diana Museum, what she called the dress that never was. That same year, she settled a legal battle over the original sketches. She also criticized shows like The Crown for romanticizing or twisting Diana's story, remembering instead a vibrant, playful 19-year-old who found peace in the design studio. But even there, shadows crept in. Diana dropped from a size 14 to a size 8 as the big day neared. Seamstresses kept altering the bodice to fit her shrinking frame, a silent cry behind the glamour. Elizabeth mourned her deeply, calling her death a light extinguished. Through recreations and consultations, she's helped keep Diana's spirit alive, not just in fabric, but in feeling. Because Diana's fashion didn't just dazzle, it spoke. But the fairy tale unraveled quickly. From the start, her marriage to Charles felt choreographed, not connected. It was all for show, posture over partnership. Even their photographs were edited to make Charles appear taller. These weren't just aesthetic choices, they were exercises in control. On their wedding day, there was no kiss on the balcony, no warmth. But there was rebellion. Diana omitted the word obey from her vows. something even Queen Elizabeth hadn't done. It was subtle, but powerful. She would honor Charles, not submit to him. That choice foreshadowed a future of quiet defiance. One of the most tender and tragic chapters in her life came through Barry Manicky, her bodyguard. Older, married, and gentle, he became her confidant and, eventually, something more. Diana called him the greatest love of her life. She even considered leaving the royal family for him. But love in her world was dangerous. He was suddenly reassigned, and a year later, killed in a motorcycle accident. Diana always believed it wasn't just an accident. Her gut told her otherwise. Meanwhile, Charles had never let go of Camilla. She was always there, a ghost haunting their marriage. Diana knew it. She had always known. The betrayal cut deep, driving her further into loneliness and despair. Still, Diana didn't disappear. She stepped out, breaking taboos, touching AIDS patients, hugging the sick, bending rules the monarchy had held sacred. She made royalty human. But even as the world applauded, she was unraveling. Her eating disorder worsened. Her confidence collapsed. And her marriage, cold and joyless, became a media circus. As if things couldn't get more strained, Charles grew paranoid. He suspected Diana, possibly in quiet coordination with Sarah Ferguson, was maneuvering behind the scenes to sway public opinion and even the Queen herself. He feared a royal shakeup that would see him bypassed for the throne in favor of a regency led by Prince Andrew. There was no proof, but the fear said everything about the palace atmosphere. One thick with distrust, secrecy, and quiet panic. And then came the night in Paris. But before that final chapter was sealed, the whispers reignited about what really happened and who might have wanted Diana gone. After the divorce, Diana was pushed to the sidelines. She lost her title, her royal role, and slowly, her place in the institution she had once helped humanize. It wasn't just a demotion, it was exile. The more they distanced her, the more she questioned their intentions. Her 1995 Panorama interview shattered the royal facade. Calm but cutting, she spoke of Charles's affair with Camilla, her battle with bulimia, and the haunting truth that there were 3 of us in this marriage. Her honesty struck at the heart of royal tradition. It wasn't just scandalous, it was seismic. The palace recoiled. The public embraced her. But the price of that vulnerability was steep. Diana became the world's most hunted woman, her every step stalked by flashbulbs and headlines. In her final months, she felt a growing sense of dread. In a letter to her butler, she warned of a plot to tamper with her car's brakes and cause a crash. She called that moment in her life the most dangerous. After her death in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the letter became a chilling clue. Questions erupted. Why the speed? Why the chase? Why the delay in medical help? The official answer, that the driver was drunk and fleeing paparazzi, never satisfied everyone, especially not in light of Diana's own warnings. Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father, loudly rejected the idea of accident. To him, this was a planned assassination. He believed the establishment couldn't tolerate the idea of Diana, mother of a future king, marrying a Muslim man and possibly carrying his child. It would shake the monarchy to its core. And so, the theories lived on, born of grief, suspicion, and a collective refusal to let go of a woman the world still mourns. His claims ignited a firestorm of controversy. And yet, for all their boldness, they weren't so easily dismissed. Diana had voiced fears. She had written that note. The timeline was murky, the facts contested, and the emotion surrounding her death made objectivity nearly impossible. Despite years of speculation, Operation Paget, a sweeping investigation led by British authorities, eventually concluded that Diana's death was a tragic accident. A perfect storm of recklessness, flashbulbs, and poor judgment. But for many, the report left too many stones unturned. Questions persisted. Books were published. Documentaries aired. Each one peeling back a different layer of uncertainty, each one keeping her story alive. And so the mystery lingers, not because people can't accept her death, but because they felt her life. Diana was never just a princess. She was a mother, a fighter, a beacon of vulnerability in a world ruled by detachment. She made the stiff winds of royalty feel human, if only for a moment. And that made her unforgettable. Her death may be officially closed, but the ache it left behind remains open. Whether one believes in plots or fate, the truth is painfully clear. Diana lived in fear. And that fear, in the end, was tragically justified. Thanks for watching. If you found this story moving, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing so you never miss an upload. And don't go just yet. Click the video on your screen now. It's one you won't want to miss.